One thing I love about SEK Surebond is how they are dedicated to their boots on the ground training. And what I mean by that, guys, is when you're going into any new application process with your accessories, be sure to get these guys out on your site with you. Dave, as long as I got you in the booth here, I'd like to talk about some of the myths with jointing material and some of the options with jointing materials.
We really feel that we have really good 4 jointing options for depending on what project you have going on. The first one is our polymeric sand, Polysweep. Second would be our Hydro Sweep, which is our resin sand. And then we have perm chip that you can also stabilize with the stabilizer sealer. And then we have our, just regular joining sand, which is ASTM C144 sand. And then you'd add a stabilizing sealer to that product as well.
Perfect. So when these guys are going out and they're designing these projects, in my opinion, they should be thinking about what they're putting in these joints right at the design process. So let's go through those joint options and which one fits each project and why you would use it. So let's start out with polymeric sand, the number one that we should be using. And Greg and I just talked about being the number one callback. But as long as you're putting in the product correctly and getting it wet, poly is the number one, like you said.
Yeah, so polymeric sand would be our first option, absolutely. I mean, that's, what you probably should be putting in pretty much every one of your job sites. There are, however, situations where that might not be the best fit. Every job site has its own, environmental factors. Maybe a job site that stays wet, maybe very tree covered. So if that polymeric sand can't dehydrate and dry out, then that may not be the best option for that. You may want to then look at something like a resin sand that you actually use water to apply the product. So it really doesn't matter if you have a lot of moisture in that job site because you're actually using water to get that material into the joint.
I like that you said that right there, because even myself, I thought maybe I was behind the times if I wasn't switching from polymeric sand to resin sand, but that's not what we're doing. It's not an advancement in joint technology per se. It's just another option per job site, correct?
Absolutely. It's another tool in your toolbox. Like I said, depending on what the job site, you obviously when you go out and you're bidding this job site, you're looking at all the environmental factors, and that is when you should be deciding what you're going to use in that joint materials. If it's this time of year, you still have a job site going on in October, November, resin sand may be a better option for you because with the weather that we have in October, November, in most of the United States, you could get rainfall. It could take days for that job site to dry out properly. So then you may want to use something like a resin sand that allows you to work later into the year. Same thing with spring. Things are wet. That would be probably a better option for that time frame as well.
And the resin sand can be used in a permeable application. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So the resin sand is going to be free flowing. So like you and Greg were referring to our Easy Set system, that would be a great option for that, or open graded base. That joining material is going to be free flowing to allow that water to go back into the environment.
So we have the resin sand and the polymeric sand, probably number one and number two.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of other ones out there. The third one I've definitely used in some of my 2-finger joint flagstone application, and that's just the what do you call them, the perm chips?
Perm chips, yep. So perm chips is just the number 9 stone. We have 3 different colors. We've got a gray, a tan, and a black. So it can match whatever your stone material is. Great for permeability as well. Some people will want to use that on just a normal permeable application as well, whether it's permeable paver or, like you said, natural stone product. And then you can either stabilize that with our perm stick, which is our SB1000, or you don't necessarily need a perm, a stabilizer, but it does help to keep all that joint fill in the joints.
That on my jobs has come down to client expectations. I'm probably 50-50. I think half of my perm chip installations are sealed up, and then the other half of them are not. And the chips do stay in place. They settle down and they do stay there. So I get that for sure. And then the fourth one, probably maybe the oldest option in the industry, or the traditional one, or how would we say that? But what's the fourth option?
Yeah, so the fourth would be, and you and I, touched on this last time when we had a conversation last year, is just our normal ASTM C144 joint sand, and then using a joint stabilizing sealer over top of that. So our joining material, our joint sand, it'll come in a black and white bag. It has the same colors that we offer for polymeric sand for our Polysweep. And with that product, you're going to be sweeping it in, compacting. Every step is the same. It just doesn't have any polymer. So yeah, we have 4 different sealers that you can apply over top of that joint sand, and in what we call a flood coat, they will harden up that joining material.
What I like about the efficiency of that is if you're already planning on sealing the patio, that's a way just to put down the regular sand and lock it in with the sealer that you'd be putting on the patio anyway, right?
Absolutely. It speeds up your process too. So instead of, if you had to clean it, or if it's a new project, you don't have to wait for that polymeric sand to dry. You can sweep in joining material and then seal it the same day.
So if you guys are questioning what jointing material is best for your project, we actually have a joint selection tool on hardscapementor.com where you can put in all the aspects of your project and it'll actually kick out, what jointing material is best for you. Then you simply reach out to your SEK Surebond rep. That is the number one thing you need to do, is don't use a product unless you have a rep in your back pocket, like Dave Pinkerton. Dave, what is your area? Where do you cover?
So I cover Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, and Kentucky. So, give me a little bit of a heads up if you need help on a job site. Do cover a large area, but would love to help anybody out that has any questions, or if they're the first time using one of these products or they want some help on a job site. Happy to be there for them.
And like I said, I can't stress enough to hook up with one of these reps before you go into any of these installation processes. So thank you so much for joining us, Dave. If you guys have any further questions about this, be sure to reach out to SEK Surebond and also join the herd at hardscapementor.com and check out our in-depth tutorials that we put together with these guys.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, brother.